My name is Jerry. I also go by Mathysphere. I like cross stitch and I like math and I like data. I ain't very good at it, but I like it. I'm getting better with it. Today I'm coming to you from a little hotel room. I'm traveling with my sister, as you can tell. These are my traveling earrings. I've been gathering a bunch of data. If you've been watching me on Tumblr, I've been talking about it. I figured I got it all together. I would look through it, film it for y'all, and we'll talk about some stuff. Also, the hotel that I'm in is next to a freeway, and also my room is right next to a pool. So if you hear any sounds, there are some sounds. I've never filmed one of these before, so I don't know right now how to edit those sounds out, but trust and believe, by the time it goes up, I'm pretty sure I'll have figured it out. Can't be that hard. Alright, a little bit of backstory on what we're doing today. First up, a year ago, I learned how to use a web scraper. It's a little Firefox plugin, pretty easy to learn, easy to set up, easy to run. And so ever since I learned how to do that, once a month, every month, I've been going to Etsy's list of most recently listed cross-stitch patterns. These are both new patterns and also ones that are being relisted, renewed, basically. I've been telling the web scraper to go over all of them and save a whole bunch of information. For today, the relevant information is it saves a list of recommended searches. What these are tags that are given to the cross stitch by the seller themselves. I'll give you an example of one of my listings. Here are the things I tagged it with. Here are the things that show up as the little recommended searches to go along with. These are not chosen by Etsy. These are not procedurally added on. Somebody chose these. And these will be what we'll be looking at today. We will not be looking at all of them today. The data still needs sifted through, cleaned up a little bit. For example, if I were to show you the list of the top 10 most common Etsy tags, they would look like so. Which is not exactly groundbreaking. I mean, this one is interesting. Later we might do putz around a little bit, see if we can dive a little more deeper into that one. But in general, it's like, oh shit, wow, what a find. So what we're going to do is we're going to scroll all the way down that list and we're going to look at number 17, funny cross-stitch patterns. Of everything that showed up in my data set from the last 12 months, pretty uniformly, roughly 5% of all the listings scraped were tagged with funny cross-stitch. There are some variations that also showed up. Not looking at them today. We're just going to be looking at funny cross-stitch, roughly 1 in every 20 patterns. It's a pretty big data set, so that comes out to a set of 997 funny cross stitches. As you will discover though, some of them don't actually seem to be that funny. So once I saw that there were so many different funny ones, and also after I pieced through and saw that they weren't all exactly knee slappers, I knew that I wanted to get people's help sorting through them. So what I did was I made a really, really quick and simple, messy website. I used a little PHP and a little CSS HTML. And those are all 3 languages that I do not know. I have never used PHP before in my life. I've used CSS and I've used HTML, but when I was in high school, back in the Gaia Online days. That's why the site looks like this. It is ugly, but it does work. Sometimes it did not work. So thank you to everyone who sent me error reports. As it is now though, eventually it did get working and was able to collect a bunch of data. And this is the data it collected. For every pattern, it displays the main listing image for it and also includes a link to the pattern if you want to check it out. Maybe buy it for yourself. And offers originally 3 options, each of which is assigned a different point value. If you voted yes, it's funny, 2 points. Voted no, it's not, 0 points. If you vote yeah, kinda, and there were a lot of yeah, kindas, 1 point. Once it was live, I shared it on my Tumblr, hey Tumblr besties, and also on my Instagram, hello Instagram besties, and let everybody have at it. If there's one thing I know about people, especially people on Tumblr, is that everybody on Tumblr loves voting on stuff and loves ranking stuff. So thank you to everybody who shared it. Thank you a million times to everybody who hopped on and rated some patterns. Ended up getting more than 12,000 votes on the different patterns, which was incredible. Thank you. I appreciate it. The best. Once those 12,000 were in, that was enough data to pretty conclusively figure out which patterns were funny and which patterns weren't. But it actually ended up not being enough to figure out which ones were the funniest. Once we found that, went ahead and did voting part 2. Part 2, same site as part 1, except in this case added a new voting option and set it up so that there were only the top 25 funniest patterns in the running. Left this one open, got a couple thousand votes on these, and then from there, the results were in. Here's the big one. Most of the patterns, not funny at all. A solid third of them got 0 points. That's not rounding, like 0. Like nobody even voted a single kind of. And then the average point number would be 0.53. If we go back to that scale, that'd go right in the middle here. I would label it as not really. Not every pattern got a 0, of course. Not every pattern ended up as a not really. Roughly a quarter of them, 28%, managed to eke out some kind of score 1 or higher. That would put them at a kind of or perhaps a yes. And the absolute highest earner ended up getting a 1.82. I will not show that pattern to you now. I'm saving it for later. Let's talk a moment about those unfunny ones. The various cross stitches that are cute or cartoony or kitschy, but aren't necessarily like a ha-ha humorous type of thing. If they're not funny, why are they being tagged with funny? Easy answer. For some of them, it's because it's close enough. It's a related term. Maybe it's not exactly applicable, but it's, it's close enough. And for some of the others, the real head scratcher ones, it's common SEO practice. People like funny cross stitch, they're always searching for funny cross stitch. If you're selling something, it makes a certain sort of sense to say, I'll tag it with some of the most commonly searched terms. And then even if what I'm making isn't exactly relevant to what somebody's looking for, it'll still show up. They might still see it. And if they see it, they might like it. They might buy it. It's an insanely common thing that's recommended to anybody selling anything online ever. Is it good or bad? Well, it is. It's something that is the way it is, and it's not going away. I'm not gonna delve into that today. That's not what this is about. We're gonna look at some cross stitches and crunch a couple numbers. And I did get a couple extra numbers as well. I picked 3 popular tags and 3 tags that were much more niche. Grabbed for each of them 10 random listings from the same data set as before, and then looked through them and saw if they actually were about whatever it was they were tagged with. For the 3 popular tags, I chose Christmas, floral, and sampler. And for the 3 more niche tags, I chose landscape, insects, and gnomes. There were a lot of gnomes in this data set, and I am not sure why. Out of the Christmas patterns, 3 out of 10 of them, nothing to do with Christmas. Out of the floral patterns, 1 out of the 10 wasn't really floral, but it was still nature. It was a related one. And also, it was by Awesome Pattern Studio, and their stuff kicks ass. So for the floral ones, I'll say fine. It's a pass. They're all good enough. For the sampler ones, I actually made a bigger discovery. I discovered that I don't actually think I can determine what is and isn't a sampler. And I don't think anybody else can either. You should see for yourself. There's 3 of them. Like, these are samplers, right? That's sampler kind of stuff. Is this a sampler? Are those samplers? I don't think I can say. But definitely some of them, I think some of them ain't right. When it comes to the niche patterns, for the landscape ones, 10 out of 10. These all look pretty landscapey to me. And for the insects, again, 10 out of 10. They're all insects. None of them are ants, but that's fine. For the gnomes, 10 out of 10. All of them. I mean, all but... Are Santa's elves gnomes? I mean, they call them elves, but like... They kind of are, right? Maybe elves are gnomes? Maybe gnomes are elves? Well, maybe we'll come back to that. Okay, in conclusion, out of all the popular tags, it seems like it's pretty common for things to be mistagged. At this point, I don't know if I could say universally, but it's really true for the funny patterns. Seems very true for the Christmas patterns. Sampler patterns, yeah. And floral, I'm not sure. But I think that's enough to say there seems to be a trend. When it comes to niche stuff, though, it looks like if that's what you're looking for, that's what you find. So next time you're searching for something on Etsy, I keep it in mind. And with that out of the way, let's look at our winners. Introducing, ladies, gentlemen, and everyone of any other persuasion, the top 5 funniest cross-stitch patterns. Number 5, The Cats Have Been Fed by CrossStitchWithArt. This one was actually in the lead for a while. In the original data set, ranking part 1, this was the #1 pattern. Once it switched to round 2, though, and people were given the option to vote on how funny something was, a couple others kind of sneaked ahead of it. And I do have a theory. I theorize that maybe this pattern is the pattern that most people will find funny, but some of the others, some people will find funnier. I do not really have any proper evidence for this theory, but I'm theorizing nonetheless. Number 4, Free Hugs by Kajavoo. This one is cute. This one is adorable. It's goofy. I love something that's goofy. And straight up, I feel like if you had cross-stitchable fridge magnets, this would kind of make a perfect fridge magnet. Great stuff. Number 3, Cowboy Advice by StitchedByIstus. I mentioned earlier, right, that the people voting on this were coming from Instagram and Tumblr. Well, this one I think you can tell. It was mostly people from Tumblr. This quote, it's a Tumblr original. I looked up the source for it. It's by a user called Garbage Empress, who posted it back in 2018. And it's a classic. It's got everything Tumblr likes. It's a little goofy, it's a little ridiculous, it's got a possum, it's got a cowboy. We don't lose our minds for cowboys over there. Number 2, Take Me Home, Country Toad, also by Kajavoo. Yes, Kajavoo has 2 entries in the top 10, the only person so to do. No, this is not a case of bias. I am not sponsored by Kajavoo. I am not affiliated with Kajavoo. They just made, I assume, several patterns, probably uploaded a couple on the same day, and so all got into the data set when it scraped them on said day. And then they end up being really cute and really funny, and the people liked them. So congratulations, Kajavoo, you are in here twice. Lovely work with this. I love this little guy. He's just a little Grinch. What a cutie. And now, number 1, Take Me Home, Country Toad by HappySlothPatterns. It's the battle of the century, but it didn't last a century. So it's the battle of the week, I guess. The battle of however many days I left the poll open for. The battle, if you will, of the toads. Why did this one prevail? I do not know. I could not tell you. How did we end up with 2 of them in this data set? I'm not sure. And people found them similarly funny? It's a miracle to me. I wouldn't have guessed it. I was shocked. If you put these 2 next to me, like in a lineup of country toads, I don't think I'd be able to point to one and say, this one is more funny than the other. I mean, they're very similar. The one is more cute and more round. The other one's still cute, but a little more realistic. Does that make it funnier? I'm not sure. But people weren't voting on these next to each other. They weren't doing them sequentially. It was completely randomized. But 44%, 60 out of 135 people looked at this toad and said, this toad is not merely funny. This toad is very funny. And for that, this country toad is taken home the gold. Congratulations, HappySlothPatterns, and congratulations, country toad. All right, thank you guys for watching. Big thank you to everybody who voted, everybody who helped rate things, everybody who sent me messages saying like, hey, your poll is broken. It's doing stuff it shouldn't do. Happened a couple of times, and I appreciate it. Thank you. Let's try something new, and I'm glad to have people help let me know when it doesn't work out. If you like this video and you want to see more like it, you can't. I have never made one before. I might make another one though. I figured this would be a good medium to talk about data and also be able to show pictures as we go. I'm not always the best at writing words, so I figured I'd try speaking words instead. That said, if you're less of a words person, more of a numbers person, I will post I'll post a couple things. Okay, I'll post the data sets. I'll put them on my Google Drive. If I run out of space, I might have to take them down. So download those and save them to your own if you can. I'm going to put up the one for round 1 voting stuff and round 2 voting stuff. And then I'm also going to put up a link. I have kept up the website. It's reverted. No longer will it do the top 25. It's set to the original 997 patterns. You can go through, rate a couple, click through to check out the Etsy shops if you see something you like. I won't be monitoring the data for that, but it'll still be up, you know, just to have a little fun with. And then as a thank you, if you stuck around, while I was waiting for the data to all come in, I poked through a bunch of my old Pinterest boards. You can now see rapid fire, my own personal top 5 funny cross stitches throughout history. Number 5, Credit Cards by Susie Torrebreno in Just for Jobs, 1979. Number 4, Kitchen Clothes for Illness, published by Columbia Minerva in 1974, artist unknown. Number 3, When All Else Fails, Manipulate the Data. Yeah, I promise, I swear to God, I didn't fuck with the data. I ain't messing with it. I find this very humorous and definitely words to live by, but in this one case, I did not. This is by Jeanette Cruz in the Omni Book, 1998. Number 2, Visits Always Give Pleasure, stitched by M.D. I'm gonna go with Kingery, 1964. And number 1, Pac-Man for President by Millcraft, 1980, artist unknown. Peace out, you guys. Thanks for watching. Also, according to this guy I found, his name's Admiral Rads, and he's on Reddit, and he says that Christmas elves are actually elves. They are not gnomes. And that the similarities between the two can be chalked up to a case of convergent evolution, which is spurred by, enhanced by, he says, by the highly concentrated magic that exists at the North Pole. And he hypothesizes that their similarities, small size, sunny disposition, and crafting ability, are all somehow like correlated genetically.